You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Hi everyone, welcome to Potluck Food Talks. Today we have a special guest, Jackie Villena. She has worked in some amazing restaurants like Gusto in Bolivia, Barra Lima in Peru with Francis Mallmann, also then at Little Washington with Patrick O'Connell, some of the best restaurants in America. And now she's working in a restaurant group, and for a while she specialized in a caviar restaurant, which is going to be the topic today. We're going to talk about caviar. Welcome, Jackie. Nice to have you here. What's the deal with caviar? Let's start with the beginning. What is caviar? Is it like a natural product, or is it like a human process? As far as I understand, it's a salt cured roe. But is it humanly processed, or that's the natural way it comes out of the fish?
So in the past, when it was wild caught, basically people used to consume like the sturgeon, right? So basically the fishermen will take the sturgeon and take the caviar, and they will consume the caviar as like butter for their bread. Like it was the most casual thing.
Yeah, it was a peasant food, right? It was like a poor man's
Exactly. Yeah.
food.
It was
A couple of
it's
yeah.
for the fishermen, and they will like eat that with their bread and put some salt, because caviar, when it's not salted, like it has no flavor. Like
Mhm.
most of the things, right? Like it was like the most like simple thing in the world till it became like a boom. It started in Paris, when it became popular in the high class, basically. People wonder like why caviar is so expensive, right? It's just raw from a sturgeon. What makes it like expensive and delicatessen, basically, it's the time that you need to get caviar, right? Because for a sturgeon to be caught, or now like it's illegal to do wild caught. So there's farms of sturgeons around the globe, and it popularized so much that now you can find like farms in Uruguay, like Madagascar, like in places that you couldn't imagine before, with great quality caviar. But basically what makes caviar like so expensive and so delicate is that you need at least 10 years in the process to get the caviar. So
For the fish to get maturity, right? To produce the eggs. Is that correct?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
you need like a long time. Basically, it will take around 8 to 10 years for the sturgeon to be able to give you the quantity that you want from caviar. Usually, it's like 18% of their weight. So you have to wait and wait and wait. And basically, you cannot. There's places where they open a little incision and they will get the caviar. But then the second batch of caviar that you will have to wait a really long time as well, it's not gonna be as great quality.
So this
So
is an incision
once I
to the live fish, and then it's thrown back to the water, or how does
I
it
mean
work?
there's people that do that, or you take and you consume the meat of the fish, and it's a
Okay.
one thing. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So I have many questions. I've never had caviar like in my mise en place in a restaurant, so I wouldn't know how to treat it. So like, if I get like a can of beluga caviar, for example, how long can I hold it? How long does it take until it's not good enough for consumption?
Well, this is great news, because actually caviar, I mean, since you get it, or like basically it will be like, since it's packed, it will last like 6 weeks. But also, after the process where you get the caviar and then you salt it, you have to let the caviar cure. So that will depend on the quality of the caviar. It's basically like wine, right? If you can let caviar mature longer, it will develop like better tasting notes. Uh, and also like the texture, it will be more firm. Like it's a whole process. So because the caviar has to mature, it will be like from 3 to 12 months
Ah, okay.
maturing. So that's great. So it's been already, like, basically, if you want to call it like that, it's been like 3 to 12 months in a fridge. And then when it's great to consumption, it has the best, like, tasting notes, then it's like salt, and it can last around 6 weeks. So that's great.
And is it possible that the prices have dropped a little bit? Because as far as I know, I mean, caviar has always been there. It's something like jeans, so to say. It's something that is not. It's always on trend, right? But I do feel that in the last, I will say, 5 years, it has become way more trendy than before. Is there a reason for that? Is it social media? Is it the price altogether?
In my personal opinion, I would say that the reason why it became so popular it's because there's more types of not that there's more types of caviar, but like there's so many farms that
Hmm.
have different tasting notes. So basically it's easier to find the perfect tasting note for anyone. Like for example, in New York, we call that caviar that it's Kaluga, that it's one of the mildest, the chef's caviar, because you can use that caviar and put it on any dish, and it's just gonna improve the saltiness and the flavor of the dish without become like overpowering, and for people to be like, oh my gosh, what is this? Right now, there's like so many other options that you can choose that now it became popular because you can actually find the perfect caviar for you.
What are the, so to say, the categories in the flavor spectrum? Like you said, more mild, but the strongest. How are the strongest? Are there more fishy or more umami, or what are the notes?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's start by beluga. That
Okay.
it's the most popular, like people love it. And when you see the eggs, they are like really black or to the grayish color.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you try it, it's like more intense. It's almost like leathery flavor, and it's more popular in Europe. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
tasting now that they love in Europe. Here in the US, it was banned for a while because it became like endangered species. So people started doing a hybrid between beluga and sevruga. So you can find that hybrid right now in the US. But it's like a really more like punchy flavor that you have like, really intense. And then
Sea
you have
flavors, right?
yeah,
Intense sea
sea
flavors.
flavors, completely intense, black. And then you have Ocetra that it's more like nutty, if we can call it like that. It's nutty, the flavor it's like intense, really salty, and the eggs like are more onto a golden color, like kind of like brownish, and it's really popular because it has more complexity. It's not just like salty or this and that. Like you can taste different notes in this caviar, and it's my favorite actually. And then you have Kaluga, as we talked about, like it has bigger eggs, it's more mild. The only thing that you will taste is more like, some more saltiness. So it's really like people's favorite just because it's so easy to have, right? And then you have Sebruga that has like smaller eggs. It's kind of on the blackish coffee flavor. And it's really, really like briny and a little bit like fishy. So you have like, and then you have varieties, right? Depending on the farm that you get the caviar. For example, there's a caviar that comes from Madagascar, and when I was talking with my caviar rep, he said a story about that in the farm they have like mango or papaya trees. So
Okay.
the rotten fruit will fall into the ponds, and the fish will eat that. So when you have the caviar, you can taste basically a little bit of rotten fruit flavors, which is weird to say. And I had it. Like we actually used to sell it, but they don't have like a big batches of this caviar, so we couldn't continue like selling this one. But you have like amazing caviars depending on the farm. Also, you will like taste different notes, which is really cool.
Super interesting. So you mentioned Madagascar, Uruguay. I For some reason I have in my mind that Mongolia and China are producing some of the
Yeah,
top.
one of my favorite calugas comes from China,
Mhm.
and China is producing really great quality caviar. I can say like it's really consistent. The flavor is amazing. Like the eggs are firm. The caluga that we consume for the restaurant, like I buy probably like 7 kilos of caviar every week. So we purchase this caluga from China. It's really great quality. And then you have like other farms, like in Afghanistan, like you have farms.
Iran used to be one of the traditional producers 100 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, Iran. You have like farms in Iran, like Russia. Right now, and for the past 10 years also with Russia, that I know, the reason that we don't buy the caviar, it's because they don't have enough to export in big quantities because they are consuming their own caviar.
So it's all conflictive countries, as I see, like
I
China,
know.
Iran, Afghanistan.
Yeah, yeah. We used to purchase also from Israel.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
another one.
farms all over the world. Those were the most, near to the Black Sea. So, yeah, that was like,
So, and then when it comes to pairings, something that I also started to see, I mean, like, I remember seeing already like 20 years ago, Heston Blumenthal was doing his famous dish of white chocolate and caviar. But
mm,
recently, I started to see like caviar on creme caramel, like on flan here in Spain, or on Basque cheesecake, like lots of
yeah.
desserts with caviar. And for me, that's something relatively new to see. It's so widespread.
I know. Actually, when we were opening the Champagne and Caviar bar where I used to work and I was the chef there, we did R&D and we tasted all the kinds of caviar that you can imagine from all the farms and all the brands. Like we were eating caviar so much, and then we did the R&D process. So there I ended up cooking, like literally cooking with caviar for a whole year in different dishes. And one of my favorites actually, it was French toast,
Oh,
like
yeah.
with a lot, like, it has to be like warm and gooey and crunchy on the outside, a lot of maple and caviar or cetra caviar. Oh my gosh, it was like just the perfect combo. I mean, I used to work at the Inn at Little Washington, and Patrick will say put the same amount of salt and sugar in any dish, like even like juices, right? So for me, like this combo of like salt and sugar is just like so umami. We used to do donuts with caviar. We wanted to kind of like focus a little bit on the American aspect.
Yeah.
So we were like trying donuts with caviar, and then we did so many dishes like pairing like sweet and savory. Also one like vanilla ice cream, caviar, and olive oil.
Okay.
It's so good. So good.
I guess like cream and fat are key, right? To enhance
Exactly.
the flavors.
Exactly. Actually, like caviar is served with accoutrements. And one of the key things that you need to have when you are having caviar is like creme fraiche or
Yes.
butter. So that basically will contrast like the brininess, right? So it's gonna give a nice, soft and mild, pairing with the caviar. So anything creamy is like welcome with caviar.
Yeah, like I just recently went to Echevarri and we added an extra dish of caviar to the menu and it was served just with it was goat butter and caviar. That was it. Very,
And
very
it's
nice.
all you need. And
Yeah,
brioche, like for
yeah.
me, that's my perfect combo. Like brioche, butter, like great quality butter, and caviar. Like so simple, but that's my favorite way to eat caviar. And we used to serve it at the inn also with brioche and butter. Yeah,
Yeah.
so good.
More butter and brioche is just like a lot of butter in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, also something I started to see, I saw that before, but I started to see it way more recently is adding caviar to steak tartare. And I think that's so clever. It's common to add anchovies or anchovy flavors. And so you have this fishy, strong flavor, which caviar also has. And it's also an egg. So it's also common to add eggs to a steak tartare. So it makes completely sense to add this, I think.
It's just so good. We actually served this steak tartare in the restaurant. We picked up so good quality caviar that was like briny and will give all these notes that we had to take the capers away basically because it wasn't needed. Yeah, it was like just chives, meat, great quality meat, and the caviar, the saltiness. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. You don't need capers if you have caviar, for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
And then what are the correct ways to treat it? I know you have to use this pearl spoons, no metal, so
Yeah.
because it oxidizes. Are there any other like good practices? And if you have kind of caviar in front of you, what's the best way to use and the ones to not to do?
I mean, I would say never open a tin of caviar if you're not planning to consume that in the next 2 to 3 days. Because sometimes you want to take a little bite and then you will try it in a week, right? It's the main event. Like, try not to open because air will make the caviar oxidize. So that's why it's so sealed. And then mother of pearl spoons of like wooden spoons, plastic spoons, just because if you use metal, that would, or golden also, it's a good, recommendation. But if you put metal on the caviar first, the flavor will change and then it will oxidize. And when it oxidizes, basically you see that caviar that has a lot of oil in the tin. And that's a bad sign. That means that it's oxidizing and basically it will melt, right? One of the best qualities of caviar is like preserving the pulp that it's like eggs. So when you open a tin of caviar, you want to see every individual egg. And basically you're killing that process if you use something that it's not appropriate. And then keep the caviar with ice and make sure that the tin is flat. Some people like don't care, and they will put the caviar like anyway, but like make sure that it's flat because if not, all the eggs will crush, with the weight.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I would say those are.
So plastic is allowed and wooden also. Okay, I wouldn't expect that. I knew that you had to use the smaller pearl, but yeah, good to know because everybody has some plastic utensil somewhere. Maybe not a pearl one.
Yeah, and if you want to do like, for example, we do quenelles with caviar, and we have like high volume, right? So we do pre quenelles, and we use like plastic spoons. You put a little bit of like oil, olive oil, or like some water in the spoon, and that will make the caviar like flow and not like crushed when you're trying to do something. So it's more malleable, basically.
Okay, and some we talked about desserts, creams, even ice cream and tartar. What are other like winner pairings in your opinion?
Other winner pairings, in my opinion, well, fried chicken and caviar.
Oh
Sounds,
yeah,
but like fried chicken and caviar, delicious. And hamachi, like any crudo with caviar, it's so good.
you used to have a ceviche company. Does that work with ceviche, or the sour is a bad idea to pair it with?
I was just thinking about that the other day. Maybe like not caviar, definitely, because you want to preserve like the taste and it's so delicate. And ceviche is just like, some
A party
flavor.
of punches. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe like some salmon eggs that's not caviar, but like salmon eggs, or trout eggs, that would be like a nice pairing, definitely with ceviche. Then what else though is my favorite combo with caviar? I like meat, with a jus, like meat and caviar, and potato puree with caviar. That's a
And
win.
in those cases, how do you treat it? You add it on top of the steak, just a spoon, or you mix it with the sauce, or how does that work?
Usually, when you're doing fish with sauces and cream, you add the caviar just so you have like the caviar spread out evenly everywhere. But with the
And
steak,
in the sauce, you mean?
the sauce,
Or
yeah.
okay.
But when it's with steak, you want to taste like the steak and the caviar also separate. So my recommendation will be to just put it on the side or maybe on top, but not to mix, right? Because you can
Mhm.
also have the both experience by themselves. Yeah.
And if you mix it with a sauce, I guess that's a last minute thing, right?
Last minute before it goes out. I mean, you can keep it. Like, it's not gonna happen. Like, nothing is gonna happen. Like, the eggs are not gonna explode or anything. You're gonna preserve the texture definitely for half an hour. Like, it's
Hmm.
fine. Yeah, you can keep it as long as the
Okay.
caviar is good quality.
And I can also think of eggs. Yeah, it's something also relatively common, right? Like the to have
Oh
like
yeah, yes,
poached eggs or omelets or these kind of things.
yeah. Omelet with caviar, delicious. Yeah, there's like a lot of like kind of like egg mousse that
Hmm.
you put caviar on top and then you have toast, delicious. The soft boiled egg, even like eggs benedict with caviar, that's really popular right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Yeah, I can imagine like a nice liquid egg yolk full of caviar and using that as a sauce. I
Yeah,
see that.
There's a dish here called it's from Jean George, one of my favorite chefs in New York, and it's I think it's called egg with egg, but basically it's like a brioche toast, cured eggs, and then you have another brioche toast, chives, and a quenelle of caviar on top. And it's so popular. Actually, during the R&D process, like I was like, I want to do this, and it's so good. Like just liquid egg yolk and the caviar, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely see that. And you mentioned mashed potatoes. How do you do it in that case? Do you incorporate it to the mashed potatoes also at the very end before serving, or how does that work?
No, we put it on top.
Okay.
Actually, was like kind of like we just had mashed potatoes in the restaurant, and then we put caviar just because we had caviar and we were eating and it was so good, so we put it on the menu, and it's now one of the most popular dishes that we have in the restaurant. Like it's so simple, but just put it on top and people love it. Like there's so much butter, it's really really rich though, so we don't serve like a big amount. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely see that because the potato has its natural umami. If you do like a classic French one with lots of butter,
Yeah.
that's all checks
Yeah,
for caviar.
exactly. You change like the butter on top, herb, I don't know, butter by caviar, and it's so good.
What about buying caviar and not getting ripped off or scammed or getting fake caviar? What should people be aware of?
When it comes to caviar, I work with Petrosian, and I'm really proud to say this because they, in my opinion, are the best caviar company in the world. You really can see the quality in the caviar, and they have stores all over the world. And then something that you need to be aware, like it's just like buy from companies that are really well known, because they will actually treat the caviar with, respect and quality. It's really hard because you can not open the tin. So if you never had caviar before, I will say like go to the store instead of buying online, unless you buy online from a good vendor, and go to the store and taste also the caviar, because in that case you're not buying a tin of like $200 and then you're not gonna like it. I would say always go for the tasting notes, read them. Probably a caviar that I would recommend for anyone that didn't have caviar before and it's not too expensive is Kaluga. Kaluga, I would say it's my go-to. Like, start with Kaluga and then build your way up, then Osetra, Beluga, because in that way you're not gonna fail. Like, if you don't like Kaluga, that it's really fresh and mild, probably you're not gonna like the others unless you like something like more briny, right? And then just keep it in your fridge. Don't open the tin before time. And use mother of pearl spoons. If you don't have that, like use plastic spoons. And if you use metal, consume the caviar that same day. That would be my rate.
So this goes a little bit off topic, but I also wanted to know a little bit about your experience at the Little Inn at Washington, because that's such a legendary restaurant. How was it? It's also like, I would say, like on the countryside. It's not like near like a big city or anything.
The Inn at Little Washington, it's like a dream, a fairy tale, I would say. So I arrived to America, and 2 weeks after, I was applying to the job already. And then they told me, like, okay, can you come for a stash? And I'm like, sure. So I see the location, and it's located in a national park. So it's like really outside in the country, and it's in a town, and that's why the name, that it's called Little Washington. And basically, Patrick O'Connell now owns the whole town. Well, it's a really small town, but it's like a culinary experience since you start like your drive there. So I arrived and I started with a stash, and I didn't know that they were known to have one of the most beautiful kitchens to work in the world. So just imagine my reaction. It's like being inside a castle.
I remember as a young apprentice, somebody went there, like a blogger. I'm talking about 20 years ago, and made pictures of the whole kitchen and really like of the people working there with this Dalmatian pants.
Yeah, no, I was like, where am I? And I just arrived to America, right? Like, it was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get this job. So excited. And then I go there. It was the most beautiful kitchen. Everybody had a Dalmatian apron. And then on the wall, you can see a big painting. Like it's like probably 2 meters. And it's Patrick O'Connell with his two dogs that are Dalmatians. And that's why he has those aprons. And then it just like every day just felt like a fairy tale, I would say, like out of your imagination. And then one day I saw the movie of Patrick and he says, like, every time I do this, I want to see my life and I need for it to feel like a movie. And I would say he really achieved that. Working there taught me so much. You always have to start on prep, so you start in the mornings. After 2 weeks, they moved me to the hotline to be the cook for the hotline in the mornings and during lunch. And I was there for probably like 8 months. And then I moved to dinner service. That it's when you know that you are like good, like finally, because there's only 7 line cooks.
Wow.
Everybody, yeah, there's only 7 line cooks and everybody has their different stations. Patrick lives across the street, so he goes for dinner service every day. Literally, he goes every day and just working there. Everybody had like a purpose, sense of urgency. There's perfection. We had 3 sous chefs during each shift. And one basically was just walking around the kitchen. There's an island and there's only 7 cooks and you can hear him like saying like, hey, this is not, you could improve this, you could improve that. It wasn't even like about, not making mistakes. It was making things like great and amazing. Before we put anything in a container or in a bag, there had to be a tasting with a chef, like even with salted butter that will go on a piping bag. Everything has to have flavor build up, as we said, salt and sugar in every dish, even like if it's a juice, just building that flavor, the sense of urgency. Everybody cares deeply about what they are doing, and you feel really proud about that. And that's where my journey with caviar started, actually, because I was in charge of putting the caviar away and we had so many different things, and I had to give the caviar to each station and tell them like, okay, here's your caviar, be careful, and like putting the caviar away, doing tastings. That's when my journey with caviar actually started, because I had to then pick up the caviar from each station, see how much it weighs, and put it away gently. Like I was like so obsessed with that because that was my job, right? Besides cooking and everything. So that's when actually my journey with caviar started. I will 100% go back there one day.
And you mentioned that he basically owns the town. What are, because I can think of, for example, French Laundry, that he has this kitchens to prepare the Bocuse d'Or team around and farms and things. What's the case in the Little Inn?
Oh, the little inn, basically, there's cottages. So he owns basically the town, and every cottage or house has like a different concept. So the inn at Little Washington also it's a hotel.
Yeah, it's a Relais Chateau also, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a Reliance Chateau. And every room in the hotel has like a chef name. So I stayed once in Julia Child and you can see like her pots or things like that, Thomas Keller. And then in the town, you have different houses that have a different concept as well. That's basically surrounding the hotel, and then you have places where you can do like events, and then we have a farm where we have like llamas. We had also like beautiful like French style gardens around the restaurant. It's just amazing. And then everybody that works there basically lives there, so they give you housing, basically really affordable. So I used to live with like 7 crazy line cooks, and we would like cook every day. There's a lot of outdoor spaces. So we used to do like barbecues. It's just like basically, if you work there, that's your life. And that's
Yeah.
your only reality. Even like the nearest supermarket was like half an hour drive. So that's your life. Reality is there. And yeah, I mean, the town is beautiful. The houses that are surrounding are also, and it's just a really great experience to immerse yourself into that. And for people to drive also, and get there. Like during COVID, I think we closed only like for 3 weeks because people keep coming. Like it never stopped. And people from like, Korea, they first have to arrive to DC or like another airport in near Virginia, but then you have to drive 3 hours to get there. So
Wow.
for me, that always impressed me, and that's that, 3 Michelin, you really travel to go and have that experience. Yeah. So
It
I will
re- it,
recommend
re-
everyone.
it really sounds like a gastronomic Disneyland somehow.
It was actually before that I got a like 1 week before that sous chef job in DC. It was my first sous chef job, and I was working there for a week, and then I received like the news for like, do you want to come for a stash? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go and see, but I'm gonna stay in DC because I don't see myself living like, so far away. Uh and then once I arrived there, I was like, wow, this is what it means to take your life and to be a chef and to be in the hospitality world. And this is the dream, this is the goal. And I resigned it the next day.
Wow,
And I
amazing.
left, and then I started living there.
That's it for this week's episode of Potluck Food Talks. If you like what we're doing, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok as Potluck Food Talks. The show airs every Monday.